Okay. Let's try this again.
Welcome to Forking Off, the podcast for people who said no to just following orders, where we explore the very personal decisions behind leaving federal service, whether it was by choice or by force. Every departure has a story, and we're here to share them.
This episode of Forking Off was recorded in summer of 2025. Hey everybody, I'm Philip Fields. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Forking Off. I've got my wife here, Jill Fields. Jill, why don't you go ahead and give us your bluff?
All right. Hi, I'm Jill Fields, and I was a supervisory intelligence analyst in FBI's Los Angeles field office. I took the second fork in the road.
Why don't you start everybody with some of your background? Tell us more about you.
I grew up in Mississippi. Growing up, I always knew that I wanted to help people. I wanted to do things to give back. I went to college at a small school in Mississippi called Mississippi University for Women, also known as the W. After I graduated, I decided that the best way for me to give back was to work as an admissions counselor at the W. After 2 years of working as an admissions counselor, I was accepted at the University of Mississippi School of Law. I had always wanted to go to law school. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to help people out. And I loved every minute of my time at Ole Miss. But I'm going to be the first to tell you, law school's hard. I found a great group of friends who helped me out, who spent every afternoon in the law library. I was determined I was going to be able to graduate from law school with honors, and I did. I ended up graduating cum laude, and I ended up moving back to my hometown of Vicksburg and working at a small firm there. Working in a small town as an attorney means that I did everything from family law cases like divorces or child custodies to wills and trusts to real estate to civil litigation. But I had some pretty bad things happen in my personal life. I decided to move across the country and make a new start for myself. I packed up. I moved to California. I studied for the California bar exam and I passed it in 2008. When I moved out here, I met you, Philip. We got married very quickly. It was great. I passed the bar exam. I thought this was going to be fantastic. I was going to just find a job and that was going to be it. Well, I moved to California in 2008 at the height of the recession. I actually went and did some research last week because we had been talking about this, and it was 1,000 to 1,500 attorneys being laid off every month. So it was hard to find a job as an attorney out here, but I still kept doing some legal contracts on the side. I was doing appellate briefs, some legal memos. I was reviewing contracts, negotiating contracts, and I was also working on some wills and trusts. We ended up moving to San Diego, and I started volunteering at the American Red Cross. That eventually turned into being onboarded as a caseworker specialist in the Services to the Armed Forces branch. And then we moved in February of 2012 back to LA. You joined the FBI. I was looking for a job. I volunteered. I think it was the first week you went to work. You came home and it was like the end of the week and you were like, Jill, there is this job and you would love it. It is right up your alley. It's not being an attorney. It's this thing. It's called an intelligence analyst. And I was like, okay, what's that? Because to me, the FBI was agents and arrests and doing all these scary things. I mean, I knew Philip was there as a staff operations specialist, but I thought that would just parlay into becoming an agent. I really didn't know that there was much else to do in the FBI. But you started telling me more about it, and I was like, that's what I want to do. It was a way to take my skills as an attorney and apply them to something bigger to help people protect our nation from terrorists and spies and violent criminals, and do it all without a gun or having to do a fit test and run. As soon as the position opened, I applied. And then I waited and I waited and I waited for 4 years to make it through the entire process. There was sequestration, there were hiring freezes. My application got lost at one point in time. All of this, and I finally got the offer to join the FBI as an intelligence analyst. I joined in May of 2016. For those 4 years that I was waiting, I was a stay-at-home mom. Going to Quantico was terrifying. I was leaving my 3-year-old. Homesickness was absolutely terrible and awful. I'm still not sure how I managed, but I did it. I came back to LA as an intelligence analyst. In 2017, you ended up getting a transfer to our counterterrorism division. I went to the counterterrorism program as well. I worked with some really amazing people, and I got some opportunities that I never would have gotten if we had stayed in LA the entire time. My first year there, I got to brief the Provost Marshal General of the U.S. Army at the Pentagon. Like, that would never have happened if I had just been in LA. I also, in 2019, was selected as one of the FBI's liaison officers for CIA's Counterterrorism Mission Center. In 2021, you got offered your office of preference for LA, which I remember you called me and said, hey, so I got offered my office of preference. I got offered LA. I was like, okay, that's great. And you said, we have to make a decision by close of business today whether or not we're going to move back to LA. That was scary. I ended up calling a couple of friends from the LA office, my first supervisor and my very first friend that I had in the bureau in LA. And I was like, okay, guys, should we come back? And they were like, we would love to have the Fieldses back. And we came back. I had already applied for the supervisory intelligence analyst position here in LA. I interviewed, I got selected for the position, which completely blew my mind. I started my job as an SIA January 2nd, 2022. And I loved it. I loved that job. It was fantastic. I loved my squad. This was my place. These were my people. And if I thought being an IA was my calling, this was my destiny. My squad was the absolute best. They were so open to coaching and mentoring, and I couldn't have asked for a better job. However, I did not love how the Intel program in LA was being treated by the criminal program.
The criminal program.
The criminal investigative program, that's like your violent crime, your white collar crime, your transnational organized crime, your cartels, things of that nature that are not in the national security, the counterterrorism, counterintelligence realm.
And these are primarily the special agents investigating those.
Yes. There are some amazing criminal agents, and there are some really great criminal programs that work very well with the intelligence program. In some cases, the intelligence program was just not treated as much of an equal. And coming from a national security background, coming from counterterrorism program, you have to have intelligence there. The intelligence program is vital to counterterrorism and counterintelligence. Counterintelligence, it has it in the name. And everyone on the national security side knows if you don't have intel in the room, your operations are going to fail. Crim program didn't see it that way. I can't tell you how many times my analysts were told, hey, don't document that. That's going to be discoverable.
Discoverable.
The information that gets handed over to the prosecutor. So the prosecutor then goes through and decides what needs to be passed over to the defense. It is the legally required, constitutionally bound, what you have to pass over. Here, they were worried about things being discoverable. Here's the deal. Once you do it, it's discoverable. It doesn't matter if it's in a system of record. It doesn't matter if it's in an email. It doesn't matter if it's in a chat. It doesn't matter if it's in a text. Guess what? It's discoverable. It was just really hard to understand because nobody was going to do anything that was ever going to try to hurt a case. Parts of the CRIM program, they just wanted Intel to compile database findings. And if Intel did anything other than that, we would start getting complaints that we're putting the case in jeopardy. Or, get questions of why is Intel digging through my cases? And in one instance, one of my analysts, they were doing their job. They were working with the agents. They ended up getting reprimanded and embarrassed in the Squad Bay area for doing their job. The behavior from ops towards this analyst just continued on. It got to the point that the analyst ended up quitting the bureau. There are times that even as a supervisor, you can do so much, but you can't fix every problem. And I tried, even jumped in and tried to help. Even through all of this, even through everything, amazingly enough, I still loved my job. I still loved it. I loved it. I loved mission. I loved the research. I loved the work. I loved working with my squad. I loved working with other agencies. I loved it. I was thriving. I felt like I had hit my stride. I thought everything was great. I loved my job.
All right. Start off in LA, move to headquarters, do all of these great things, stopping terrorists, working at the CIA, come back to LA, you're helping people chase down bank robbers and gangs and all of this kind of stuff. That all sounds pretty cool.
It was. It was. It was cool.
So then why did you leave? What was it?
There were a lot of reasons. When you took the DRP, which I was fully supportive of, I was like, no, I got this. I'm going to keep doing this. I was like, I can do this. I'm a survivor. I got this. I can do it. I actually had started applying to leadership positions back in DC. This would be a really good time for us to go back to DC, to go back to headquarters. I was selected for a job with our weapons of mass destruction program. I was super excited. The job itself was going to be a cross between my national security background and this CRIM background. I was going to be leading a fusion cell. I was super excited. With the new administration in place, though, and a new director at the helm of the FBI, changes started coming, and changes started coming fairly quickly. The new director was quite vocal in the beginning about wanting to move people out of the National Capital Region. Well, I just gotten a job in the National Capital Region, and he's saying he wants to cut 1,500 jobs from headquarters, and not just agents, wanted to push people out.
It was pretty critical of the intelligence program at the time as well, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Very critical of the intelligence program. So the program that I was going to be joining, they actually already had some people in Huntsville and doing work down there. And the wonderful man who was going to be my new supervisor at headquarters actually reached out and he said, Jill, look, I don't know what's going to happen here. We don't know what's happening. We don't even know what's going to happen by the end of today. He was like, I can't in good conscience tell you, hey, yeah, everything's going to be great. Your job's definitely going to be here and we're going to be doing the same things. I can't tell you that. I don't know. And I know you have a kid and I know you're moving across the country specifically for this. And I don't know that this is actually going to be around. We want you here, but just know, we don't know what's going on.
So there was the prospect, you pack up your family, move from Los Angeles to DC, and then get told you're moving to Huntsville, Alabama.
Move to Huntsville or move to any other field office, because there was talk at that time about, hey, we want to push a lot of people to these high crime cities.
We had already expended a pretty significant amount of effort not moving to Huntsville.
Yes, we had spent a lot of effort trying not to get to Huntsville before. We discussed a lot. We prayed a lot about this, and I made the decision not to take the job in DC. I didn't want to uproot our family and move across the country to then have the rug pulled out from under me. Just didn't want to do that. So it's all right, I'll stay in LA. LA's a great place. We'll just keep our heads down, just keep pushing forward, keep going. I love my squad. They were happy that I was changing my mind and I was going to stay. I figured, let's give it some time. Other opportunities will come about. We'll know better where we are and how things are going to shake out with this administration. We'll be good. I'll just keep my head down, soldier on.
Before we move on, do you know what happened to the fusion cell that you were going to be leading?
Oh yeah, it doesn't exist. It's gone.
So this was a properly calculated decision.
Yes. The unit I was going to still exist, but that program is gone. So I decided to say, but more things started changing. The FBI changed its focus and changed its priorities. I was directed to lead some projects that made me extremely uncomfortable, and not uncomfortable in a good way, oh, we're growing, this is just something new. No, this was just really uncomfortable, and they were getting really close to my line in the sand of what I would do and what was constitutional. So I was directed to lead these projects, and I was told I couldn't say no. This is what I was going to do. I was also told that I could go ahead and get fired today, or I'd get fired in 4 years. I had one supervisor say to me, I know this is wrong, but what am I supposed to do? I've been ordered to do this. For what it's worth, I did say no, and I did push back, and I was still put in charge of these projects. By standing up and by saying no, I'm pretty sure I was labeled as problematic and difficult. I mean, to be told that I was right, but I have to acquiesce, was very difficult. I made sure within these projects that we stayed within the bounds of the law and we stayed within our mission at the FBI. I felt that we were getting extremely close to that line, though. And it was getting to the point that I knew I wasn't going to be able to say no forever without feeling major repercussions, which makes the rest of this really hard. While all this was going on, there was something else going on in the background. There was an SSA who was trying to get rid of me. The SSA did not like the intelligence program, and he wanted someone he could control. He ended up sidestepping chain of command. He went directly to the assistant director in charge, Akil Davis, to say that he couldn't work with me and that I was causing problems and that he wanted me moved. At no point during this time did Adic Davis ever talk to me or my analysts about any of this. Adic Davis gave orders to the intelligence SAC, special agent in charge, to remove me from all of my programs, and the Intel SAC refused to remove me from all of my programs. I was removed from that one program of which I had asked 2 years before, please remove me from this program. I think this relationship is too far gone. I was the fourth SIA to go into that program and have problems with it.
Some might say it was less about you and more about the other person in that relationship.
Some would say that. Yeah. Anyway, Intel SAC was very upset about being told to remove me from my programs. She said, look, I'm not going to remove you from all of your programs because you are too ingrained in the programs and your team needs you. So she removed that one program, which was removing 2 SOSs and actually giving me a larger program in place of that. 2 days after, the Intel SAC was placed on leave and the director had removed her from her position.
You'd been having problems with this person for quite a while. You had seen that it wasn't going to get better. At this point, they had gone around you. They had gone all the way to the head of the office, hadn't been handled well. Your SAC had been told to remove you from all of your duties. They refused. They did remove the one problematic program, and then they were placed on administrative leave.
Yes.
What happened next?
The acting Intel SAC told me that I was going to be removed from the criminal intelligence program and that he was going to place me in charge of the field office's strategic partnerships program. And what's so funny about this is he was taking me away from the criminal program, saying that it was a relationship problem, and then was going to put me in charge of all of our strategic partnerships, which is our private sector program. So with all of the companies, all of these things, DSAC and InfraGard, and all of these programs with the private sector.
So the accusation is that you can't relate well with people in the office and you're damaging the FBI. So the solution is to have you go out and represent the FBI with Fortune 500 companies and other government agencies.
Right.
Okay.
So removed from that, and I'm even told, everyone says you're so great with this, you've been doing this topic coordinator thing, you built these working groups, you've done all of this, it's all so great, this is great. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. I did. I asked it, acting Intel SAC, why was I never talked to about the problems that were apparently going on and apparently that I was causing? And he said, the ADIC said he didn't go to me or my personnel or any other individuals, any other supervisors, because this was not a personnel matter and that they only needed to talk to the CRIM program and they didn't need to talk to the Intel program. And that was that. And I was also told during this meeting that the 7th floor was aware of me and was aware of these problems, including my pushbacks.
And the 7th floor, for anybody who...
So 7th floor means the director's office in DC. I was basically told I should take this change of position and, once again, keep my head down. So the Deferred Resignation Program 2.0 was offered around that same time. I saw the email, I came home, and I was like, so they're offering it again. The email had come out before I was moved to strategic partnerships. So when I was moved, I still had 2 days to decide. I wasn't sure. I went ahead and said yes. I went ahead and sent the email saying, I'm going to take the deferred resignation. But I talked to my supervisor at the time and I told him, hey, look, I said yes to this, but it's going to be a couple of weeks before they say whether or not I can take this or not. Because there's always, with the deferred resignation program, there's the point where they can say, no, you can't take it and you have to stay in the position. So I talked to my boss. I told him, hey, I said yes, but you know what? I'm giving this a shot. I'm not saying no to this. This may end up being a dream job. I may love it. I may absolutely think this is the greatest thing ever. It wasn't. It was. that team, I don't want to say the team wasn't great because the team was. But to leave my squad and to be pushed aside and taken off of all of the programs that I had worked so very hard to build, and to know that they were willing to just throw me to the side. So on Tuesday, May 6th, I got the email confirmation that I was accepted for the deferred resignation program.
So you got accepted into the program, you got the contract, brought it home.
You and I sat down. I was still trying to hang on to everything. This was my dream job. This was what I wanted to do. This was where I wanted to be and everything. And Philip, you said something that just started putting everything into perspective. You asked me, can you come up with a reason to stay that doesn't sound like a battered spouse? And I mean, like, what a punch in the gut. Just putting it into perspective that way. Like, man. And then the best was you're like, okay, so I'm just going to leave you with that.
Now, up to this point, a lot of the justifications that you had been giving were, I need to stay for my squad. What's going to happen to them?
I need to protect them. I need to be there for them. They need me. I mean, that was a lot of my justification, was definitely very much outside of myself. I need the money. I need the paycheck. We need the insurance. We need everything. There were so many things. I had a lot to think about. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sleep on this. So later that evening, we're sitting on the couch, we're watching TV, and my best friend called me. Now, she does not call during the week, but she called, and I really, really thought something was wrong. But instead, she was like, oh my gosh, I just got off the phone with someone, and I knew I had to call you immediately. And she started telling me the story about the person she was talking to who had been through hell at their job for the last year and a half. They had it had really affected them mentally, physically, emotionally, just really at them. And that there had been one person who had just been making their life an absolute living hell at work. And I was like, are you talking to me about me? Like, really? Come on. And she was like, no. She was like, but they called me to let me know that today they'd had it. They walked into their boss's office today and they said, I quit. I am done. And they called me to say, look, I'm out of this. Like, I did it. I quit. It'll be okay. I'll find another job. I'll do whatever. Like, it will be okay, but I can't do this anymore. I had to get off the phone with them and call you because I think you should quit your job. So I'm just sitting there, and my best friend has just told me, I want you to quit your job. I think you need to quit your job. She didn't know that I'd gotten the paperwork. She didn't know any of this. And I'm just sitting there going, holy crap. Wow. I did not realize how bad this had gotten. And my best friend said, look, I haven't seen you happy in a really long time. And you deserve to be happy. And you deserve better than how you've been treated over these past couple of years. I don't think it's worth it for you to be there anymore. And she's like, it's your decision. Like, you do whatever you want. And I was like, well, I just got the paperwork that says I've been accepted for the deferred resignation program and I can take it. And she was like, well, I think you should. And I was like, okay. So I cried. I slept on it. And the next day I went into the office. I went to the acting Intel SAC's office and I said, hey, here's my paperwork. I need you to sign it. We talked for a little while. He was like, Jill, come on. Like, you're really good at this. You just got a new program. Like, this is going to be okay. You're going to be able to do it. He was really kind. Just having those words said to me did make me say, well, maybe I shouldn't. But I just looked at him and I was like, no, like, I can't do this. My husband's already compared this to being in an abusive relationship. My best friend is saying, I think you need to quit your job. So I took the deferred resignation. I left.
All right. So I emotionally punched you in the stomach.
Yeah.
And then your friend told you to quit your job, but this was your decision.
It was absolutely my decision. It was just a very hard decision to leave these people, to leave this mission that I feel so passionately about. But things had changed and I did not see them getting better. And I wasn't going to be able to do the things that I felt were necessary for my job.
Looking back on it now, you've had a little bit of time to think about it. Is there anything that you think would have changed your decision?
Maybe if leadership had talked to me sooner, maybe if they had listened to me, maybe if other people had had the nerve to say no, if others had been willing to stand up with me, which there were some. I do want to qualify that there were some. I really think it boils down to there was such a lack of support from leadership, and there was a lot of acquiescence to some directions that were not in line with the mission of the FBI. But here's the thing. People knew that I had said no to certain things, and people knew that I had pushed back. And people came to me privately on multiple occasions to basically pat me on the back and say, everybody needs to be more like this. Or, wow, thanks for doing that. You're so brave. I don't know if I could have stood up to them. And I don't look at me saying no or me pushing back as it being brave or, being something like me standing up to someone. I don't see that as me like standing up to them or anything. It was me just upholding my oath. It was just me saying, hey, I'm not so sure about this. Hey, stop. We need to ask some more questions. Hey, what are we doing here? So to be patted on the back privately and have people say like, dude, I don't know that I could do that. Like, but you were so right. And I'm so glad. And I wish more people were like you. Well, you know what? Be like me. I mean, as much as I'm a mess, but be like me. Push back, because saying no, it's not saying no. It's saying yes. It's saying yes to doing the right thing. It's saying yes to upholding your oath, to uphold the Constitution, to protect the American people, to do the things within the bounds of the Constitution that we're supposed to do. So right now, I don't think so. I don't think that there's anything that could have been done to change my decision, except for change everything that happened in the prior 6, 7, 8 months.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I had similar experiences with people coming and saying, hey, what is happening here is so wrong. I wish I could do what you're doing, but ultimately not being able to. And I think even now, some of those people are still there thinking that, well, I've kept my hands clean through most of the dirty part so far. So I think I can stay out of it, and I think I can, keep my conscience clean.
Yeah. And I'm glad you say that. Like there are people that are there that are still there. And there are good people. Really, really good people that are still there. And this was something I had a conversation with a senior executive who has since left the bureau. And I was asking some questions about, what do I do when my squad individually calling and asking and saying like, hey, what do you think I should do? This person told me, you know what? You support them. You tell them to stay as long as they will allow you to stay. And you stay there as long as you can still do your job and do it correctly. And they also pointed out everybody's not in the same situation that we're in. And I'm not saying that we're in a great situation or that we were, we're so stable that we can manage. But like, I do think that we're fortunate. We are fortunate enough in that we're able to still make it for a while. And not everybody is in that same situation, and not everybody has the support system that we have. I absolutely do not judge anyone for staying, but if you're going to stay, you still have to uphold your oath.
Stay for the right reasons.
Stay for the right reasons.
All right, so you've been in a pretty rough situation for a little while, got out of there. What have you been doing since?
First thing I did was I got a good night's sleep. I actually slept. I have taken time to step back and reevaluate what I want to be doing, where I'd like to go next. I've worked on my TBR list, my to be read list. I think since May, I have read 10 books. I've taken time to breathe. I've really just been spending time remembering who I am. I feel like for the past couple of years, I was making myself smaller and smaller at work because some people didn't like me speaking up or standing up for others. They didn't like that I asked questions or had an alternate opinion. I'm tired of making myself small.
Any new hobbies? Or
Yeah, so besides reading, I have been looking into voice acting.
All right. So when in LA?
Exactly. When in LA?
Is that the plan?
Yeah, voice acting? No. That is not the plan whatsoever. I reactivated my California bar license. Now, I kept my Mississippi bar active because I had been taking the FBI's legal advisor course to assist with the general counsel's office and the chief division counsel's office. I have started looking for jobs. I've been looking like in the intelligence field and in security. Also looking at attorney positions. For the attorney positions, I've mainly right now been looking at privacy and compliance roles because that's most of what my experience in the FBI would relate best to. I'm also studying for the Certified Information Privacy Professional exam. We've also been talking about setting up an intelligence or security co-op.
All right. Is there any situation where you think that you might consider going back to the Bureau or back to government?
Yeah, right now, that's a no. Sometime in the future, maybe under different leadership, yes. I think there's some things that need to change. But yeah, under different leadership, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jill, for all of your time. And thanks for forking off.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Forking Off. To our listeners still in government, remember, your integrity is worth more than your TSP. Leaving doesn't mean giving up on public service. It just means finding new ways to serve.
Until next time,
keep your ethics,
keep your dignity,
and we'll keep telling these stories.
If you're a former Fed with a story to tell, or you're wrestling with your own ethical crossroads, reach out to us at info@forkingoff.com.
Today's episode was created, produced, and edited by Jill and Philip Fields. You can find more information about this episode at forkingoff.com. Also, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Mastodon, LinkedIn, or wherever you get your podcasts.